Human beings are searching for the personal experience of reality. They are seeking to come to understand themselves, to find a reason for their own existence.
And so you go round and round and round, ever chasing the illusion that there is something outside yourself, outside your here and now, to be attained that will make things better.
No guru, no method, no teacher, and no nothing else either.
Welcome everybody. We have Denise Roussel with us. Denise, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for asking.
Oh, you're very welcome. First question I ask everybody, like right at the start of everything, is what are you grateful for today?
My life and every bit of it, every single bit of it.
Well said, well said. Next question that I like to get into is, what 2 or 3 quotes do you feel most moved by, and can you explain what they mean to you specifically?
Well, I generate a lot of quotes every day. So I think what I'd like to do is share what's present for me today. And the first one is a quote by my son, who passed away 3.5 years ago. His name was Corey, and a lot of what I'm experiencing is a direct result of his life. And the quote is, "Your problem has been solved. You just haven't reached that point in time yet."
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting perspective. I've had similar thoughts as well, just from my own experiences in life, and it's good to recognize that what you're going through will be resolved at some point. You're just kind of in the part where you're figuring it out, how to get to the end point of it, or the solution.
Yeah. Yes. And speaking of that, speaking of problems, we have viewpoints, and a problem is a problem because we view it as a problem. But this is another quote that I generated today. Instead of, "I have a problem that needs to be solved," I prefer, "I'm experiencing a process that is unfolding."
Yeah, that's definitely a healthier way to look at it. I mean, I know for me, I used to have all these different problems. And one of the things about recovery that I found is we focus on solutions, and solution really is kind of the unfolding of an experience to a resolution more so than anything. And it's a lot healthier way to look at things as a process than as a definitive point, I guess.
True. You may want to keep going or not, but I have lots of quotes. So
Yeah, you can shoot out one more or 2 more, whatever feels good for you.
this one that I wrote today is, "Pay attention to the stories you create about yourself. Your stories limit you. You are an infinite being."
Yeah, sometimes I have a mixed feeling with the story thing, because I need to remember where I've come from, but I also need to not be limited by it. So that's something that hangs me up sometimes. Because I know a lot of people in the New Age movement are disassociate from your story, but
Nope.
also my story is what can help other people, like how I got through it. But I also need to not be minimized by it. So
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. And when I say it limits you, it doesn't have to limit you. It can expand you. But so often we let it limit me by saying things like, "I'm a private person. I'm a pothead. I'm not very smart. I X, Y, and Z." And so we think that we identify ourselves as this, when maybe you've experienced being a private person in this story and in this body, but maybe there are parts of you that want to expand and open up.
absolutely. There was this big movement in the mental health community where people were getting a semicolon, which is more to the story. And that's kind of something that I really resonate with, because it's this is my story. I have a history of bipolar disorder. I'm not bipolar disorder, and I've transitioned from being somebody who had bipolar disorder, who ended up in a psych ward, who ended up on medication, to now being somebody who has transitioned out of that phase of it, no longer requires medication, is off substances altogether, and is doing this now. So it's part of my story, but it's like the story didn't end there.
Yes, it just created this beautiful life that you're in.
Absolutely, yeah. It was like the diving board. Yeah, so much. So,
but we
yeah.
can expand into who we are, and this is the story here. This is the opportunity here, and that is to remember who we are. And that's what we're doing here in this human experience, is remembering who we are.
And you brought up where I'd like to go with this next. Who are you specifically? If you had to describe yourself to someone who's never met you before, who's listening to this, how would you describe yourself?
I am love. I am pure presence. I am consciousness. This is who I am, and I am one with you. This is who we are.
Absolutely. What like fixed points in your life stand out as defining characteristics of your now? Whatever feels comfortable. You don't have to get into anything too quickly.
Oh, I have specific things. October 26, 2014, my middle son, Corey, died. And that was a huge awakening experience. And Corey lived a very dramatic and profound life, up and down. He died when he was 27, and he lived more in 27 years than most people live in 72. And he went through a lot of some of the stuff that you're talking about. And it was very, very important. It was not just important for his journey and to accomplish what he came here to do, but it was important for my journey. And so when he died, it was like he was saying, I'm finished now, and it's your turn. And so we've been working together for a long time, in many lifetimes. And so we continue this work. He's just gone to the other side because he could be more help there.
Absolutely. That's interesting. I know that there's a lot of people within the Positive Head group who have similar stories with their children in lots of ways. And that I know for me, I could have ended up on the other side with the way where my experiences were taking me. But for whatever reason, I'm where I'm at to be doing what I'm doing, to have this conversation with you now and to share whatever else I'm supposed to learn. And it's interesting. And I think that that's something that our culture is pushing a lot of people towards, having these really spiritual experiences and these really deep, meaningful lives, but it's learning to transition those experiences into how they're to be shared, I guess, in some ways. And some, you know what, I don't know. It's an interesting time to be going through this whole situation, I feel like.
I'd like to say one thing. I don't seek or push myself to do anything. And that right here in this moment, this is the path. And I'm right smack dab in the middle of it. When we're going through adversity and difficult times, sometimes if we do something that maybe we wind up in this situation like, oh no, what now? And we may say, uh-oh, I veered off the path. That is the path, right smack dab in the middle of it. That is the path. And it's really important that it's all our spiritual path. It's no matter how much we want to say, oh, that person's not very spiritual. It's all spiritual path, the whole thing. And what I see us is as energy, as pure presence. And when we came into this skin and into these bodies, our memory was wiped. And we forgot who we were and who we are. And so this entire human experience is just a coming back home to ourselves, to who we are.
I actually have a quote queued up that's going to be posted on my Instagram sometime soon. And it's like, this whole thing is returning home. I want to say it's by Novalis or some philosopher like that, and he kind of talks about how our whole experience is just walking home.
Yes, and I want to share with you that death, among other things, creates a lot of grief, and that ultimately is abandonment, the ultimate abandonment. And it's no surprise that this is how I woke up, because this journey, I realized through these 3.5 years, that what I was having mirrored to me, this abandonment, and it continued, was what I was a reflection of what was happening in my own life. And what I mean by that is, when we were small children, when I was a small child and a parent left or the other one left, and I felt abandoned, even though it wasn't the case that they were leaving because of me, but a child doesn't know that. A child just has to survive. So I began abandoning parts of myself. All of the feelings that I felt weren't acceptable, my sadness, my anger, my jealousy, my confusion, my whatever it was. And those parts of me that I did not want to be with, I abandoned them. And so what I've learned in these 3 years, I'm so grateful for it, all of it, all of the pain. So incredibly grateful for all of the abandonment and all of the grief. It's because I realized that I had been abandoning myself, and I came back home to myself, and I'm best friends with myself, and I know how to offer my darkness safe place and hold all of my darkness in love.
Absolutely. Pain has been one of my greatest teachers, and it's something that I really tried to avoid a long period of my life. Again, because of like childhood trauma, abandonment things, having to disassociate from elements of myself just because they weren't accepted by people in my family growing up. And a huge part of my healing for me was processing all of that and like looking at all that darkness and loving myself regardless of how I responded to situations, actions that I did, and then making peace with the people in my life that made me feel that way, because they weren't intentionally trying to make me feel that way. That was their own trauma that they had, so they acted that way. And it's like this trickle down trauma from the very first spark of life till now. It's like a huge weight for yourself or myself to kind of push off to be okay with, but it's also healing, and it gives other people the knowledge to know that they can do it and that they can do the same thing. They can shed that skin and all those masks they've put on.
So we're doing a dance with one another, and we're walking each other. And in this dance, we do experience a lot of hurt, and it's very purposeful. It's extremely purposeful. I lived a very safe and dream bubble-like existence, and I didn't come here to do that. And so Corey came. I can speak to Corey. He's very present with me. A few months ago, I asked him, why did you come to this earth? And he said, I came to shake things up, and I had to be shaken up in the process. And that's exactly what he did. He shook my life up, and he said, Mom, it's time. It's time to wake up. You didn't come here just to be comfortable and happy and safe and avoid all risk. You came here to be who you are and to wake people up and to be love. 5 days after he passed, he began appearing to me. And he came to me in a dream with a snake wrapped around his arm. And he was holding the snake by the head with its fangs bared. And I asked him, is it poisonous? And he said, no. And the implication was that it's not going to kill you. And he put the snake right in my face, and I screamed, no, Corey. And I woke up, and I knew exactly what he was telling me. He was telling me, I need you to face your fears, Mom, because you have a big job ahead of you, and it's going to require a lot of courage.
Mm.
And that was one thing that I had been doing, is avoiding my fear. And that was my biggest opportunity. So I was challenged with this opportunity to face my fears. And that's what I've been doing, facing my fears, allowing and opening. I've been doing that for 3.5 years, and it's generated so much courage. So, speaking of which, I wanted to share that in this journey, along with grieving the loss of a child, I did it in a very different way than most people. And I did it by reaching out in love to other people. Among other things, I've published 8 books since he's passed, and several of them are his work because he was very prolific. But most recently, I've published this book called On Being Love, How I'm Changing the World by Loving Myself.
Mm.
And what I realize is that what I've been trying to get from other people is all here. And that I'm flipping everything in my life. So when you trigger me, I look and hear what is in me that needs my love and attention. And I use everything to bring me back to myself. What is here? Does fear need my love and attention and my non-judgmental presence right now? It has to start here. And we as a people, as a human race, we just, our go-to is to try to get the energy from somewhere else, from outside of ourselves. But when we recognize that it's all here, it's all here, and my presence is able to hold all of it. And until I actualize the love that I am, I cannot love another. The unconditional love must start with me. And it trickles out. And it actually, when I love myself unconditionally and love all of my darkness, I'm loving you because we're one. This is how we change the world. And I'm doing it right here, right here.
Absolutely. There's a lot I want to touch on in that. One of the things is you talked about the dream with the snake. Snakes are always like a symbol for wisdom too. So it's really interesting that you brought that up. And I think a lot of people do have fear of knowledge or of knowing, because for me, like we already talked about, growing and healing is painful and it's messy. And the knowledge that you get from that doesn't come easy. And there is a lot of overcoming fear. Fear of being yourself, fear of looking at yourself. Like fear has been one of my greatest barriers to personal growth in lots of ways, but it has also been like one of the greatest motivators in my life too. Like when I made my transition, I was faced with the fear of my life staying the same or my life changing. And eventually I was like, I'm more afraid of my life staying the same. So I took all these leaps of faith. And then throughout my whole process, like I've been in the recovery process for about 18 or 19 months. I got more faith and more courage in my ability to move forward. But now I'm also getting presented with new types of fear, and also having these more ingrained sources of trauma or like past actions that I have to learn how to navigate through. And it's really interesting how you also touched on like the world kind of being a mirror. And when I'm looking at other people in a certain way, it's really a reflection of me, because that's something that I've used in lots of ways to heal. Like what is going on within me to where I feel this about that person. And one of the things that's been coming up to me lately is just being so frustrated with others that maybe don't have the same understanding I do or whatever, or just maybe more spiritually immature, I would say. I won't say that they don't have spirituality, because we're all spirit incarnate, but then I also have to remember I didn't always have what I have now. And there's people that are far beyond me that probably get frustrated with me at times. So it's like, I'm right where I'm supposed to be, and it's okay to be upset sometimes. And I just have to allow myself to be where I'm at, and that will actually change it. I don't have to try to force anything.
Thank you for doing this work of loving yourself. Thank you for being present with yourself. Thank you for practicing presence, because as you're doing it for yourself, you're doing it for me and for the entire world. You're healing the planet by this work that you're doing. And I love what you just said, because you weren't ready before. You said things are coming up that are it's like layers. Well, they're going to come up as we're ready.
Mm-hmm.
As we're ready. And there's no need to beat the bushes. Please don't. Don't try to force or push anything or anyone or make something happen. It doesn't serve. It doesn't serve. Just what's present right now, right here. That's all I have to do, is be present with what's present.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate your journey.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate being able to have this discussion, because it's nice to talk with people that get it, that have gotten it from different sources, I guess. And even talking about like the work that I'm doing is helping other people. One of the quotes that I had, I think it used to be like on my website, was spiritual growth of one raises spiritual awareness of all, or everyone, or something like that.
Absolutely.
And it really is my experience. As I get better, or as I heal and learn to love myself better, people around me, that they get better. Like, I don't know if it's through osmosis. I mean, part of it's my perception of them has changed because I'm healing. And the other element of it is because I'm healing some of my trauma, they're able to be themselves more. So they're not acting out how they normally would. It's a fascinating process.
It is. It is. And when what you're saying just confirms to me how we are truly all connected. We are all connected. And the more that we can see who we are, the more we see this. And the more we begin to create this new life, not just within ourselves, because we are aware of what's possible, and we continue to create and expand. So I know that when I'm doing this work, it's beyond me. And so I can intentionally send healing, creative, loving energy wherever I want to in the planet. And it's powerful. It is powerful.
It's interesting that you mentioned creation, because behind me is an art project that I did. Part of it was from last year. Part of it is from the beginning of this year.
I love it.
If you start at the top, it's all about energy channels going down through chakras. And these are different, these different things are supposed to represent instilling different properties within the energy. And then as you fractal off to the sides of it are different sigils that are associated with different goals that I want to achieve, different things that I want to instill within myself. And it is creative. But the interesting thing is, by having it as a backdrop for the podcast, as more people see it, that intention is further developed, and it's also further reflected to other people in some ways.
I like the way you have the black and white pieces on the peripherals here. And it's like they're just present as part of you. And they're being invited in to the light.
I definitely think that creating our life is definitely about part action, also part using imagination and actually creating. One of the old taglines for how I started this podcast was, "We are the artists of our lives. Let's create a better tomorrow." And I think that that's something that we all have to consciously do, is recognize we are art in motion, like breathing art. And we also have to take the time to learn to create whatever our gift is. It doesn't have to be painting. It can be writing. It can be whatever. But creativity is like, it's what we're born with. We kind of, we tamper it down. We tamper it down because of society. And it's like, it goes back to fear again. People won't like this. I don't like this. I'm not good at this. And it's like, when we can remove that block, life flows.
Ah, that's really cool. Exactly. And that's one of the things that also reminds me is that we're just energy. And I do a lot of thinking and processing, realizing that this flow, this is what we're doing, creating flow. When we create flow. It's a natural extension of who we are. And vice versa, when we squelch ourselves, we stagnate. And so I look at my life, and anything that comes up in my life where I feel resistance, I bring awareness to that, and I allow and I offer acceptance to that in every area of my life. And that has been very helpful for me. And I realized that this is the key. You know, I am one of those people that believes in world peace. And what I'm talking about has actually never been done before. But what I'm talking about is creating the world that looks like this. That has offered so much love and acceptance, so much love and acceptance instead of fear and resistance, that it just creates this container. And we operate in such a way as humans that we perpetuate our fear and resistance by the struggle. The struggle only perpetuates. And that's on a microcosm, on a macrocosm. And we think that war is going to, warring with ourselves, warring with each other, warring as countries, that it's going to create peace. It cannot. It cannot. It only perpetuates the same. And so what I'm doing is the exact opposite, is I am accepting, I am allowing, I am loving and accepting all of my darkness, all of it, and all of your darkness, all of it. This is not to say that anything goes and we can act as we please. This is to say that I love all of you. I love all of me. I love my darkness. I love your darkness. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with your fear. There's nothing wrong with your anger. There's nothing wrong with your sadness. They are our feelings. They bring infinite intelligence. They just want to be seen, felt, and heard, and accepted and loved. And when we can do that, we can have peace within ourselves and in our world.
Absolutely. I think that the whole concept of fighting is it's akin to thrashing about when you're in water, trying to swim, and eventually you're going to get tired and drown, or you can just float. But people forget that because it's like the not fighting element is not something that we practice. And it's interesting too that you bring up the war thing. I really believe that fear is the reason for pretty much everything negative within the world, and that all of that fear is built up in that kind of trickle down trauma that I had mentioned earlier that we had both talked about. And it's like the solution for it is actually love and getting to a point where we don't let certain things slide, but you don't have to enforce certain things. And once people could be comfortable with their past and with themselves, a lot of the other stuff falls by the wayside, because greed is like fear of lack. Control is fear of being like out of control.
Yes.
And
or being controlled.
Yeah, absolutely. And like once people recognize that those are primitive things that we should be outgrowing, a lot of those structures fall down, and the need to fight for things becomes pointless. And one of the things is we would have to get rid of money, I feel like, for world
That's
peace.
going to happen.
Yeah,
That's going to happen.
because there really isn't like a point for it at a certain point.
There's a lot of things that are coming down, and I don't know when, but I know this. And the work that I'm doing is really, really critical. And the work that you're doing is really, really critical, because what I'm trying to do is to create more meditative energy, and more loving kindness. And when I say meditative energy, I don't mean just people sitting down in meditation. I'm talking about living a lifestyle that is meditative. And the reason why that's so important, because it brings us to this present moment, which is who we are, which is love. Presence equals love. And so all of it ties together. And so this is the work. And I feel in this point in my life that I'm being asked to assemble the troops for a very different kind of operation. And it's to assemble in this meditative energy, in this loving kindness, to awaken to who we are. We get pockets of this glimpse of understanding, and we're like, oh, I get it, I get it. But the more we are awakened, the more we sit in this present moment, and it's a practice. It is a practice, because our human nature wants us to be everywhere else but here. So the more we can create this meditative energy and this loving kindness, the more we can awaken to who we are. And it's very important. I want to say we are moving to a new earth, and I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know how it's going to come about, but I do know that there are many ways we can make this transition. Much like a death, we can people experience very traumatic deaths in wars, very gruesome deaths. Or some people experience very peaceful, harmonious deaths, maybe even going to sleep and not waking up. And this transition into a new earth is going to depend on us. And it's really, really important that we generate this meditative energy and this loving kindness, because we get to choose. There will be a tipping point at some point. The more people wake up, we will move towards a transition that is more in line with who we are. This work that you're doing is very, very important. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for doing what you do and sharing all of your experience as well. One of the things you said about like assembling the troops made me think of one of the poems from my book. I just want to find it and share it with you real quick. I think that you'll dig it, because it was kind of similar to what you were talking about in some ways. And it's always interesting to hear ideas reflected in other people. Let me find it. Okay, here it is. The spiritual warriors trade their weapons for pens, paintbrushes, and clay. Their blood is a pigment, a multitude of infinite colors. They are the leaders not by choice or force, but by the attraction from their truth. However, they lead not by hierarchy, but by linear acceptance. They battle fear in the world, not by guerrilla tactics, but side by side, spaced like a search party to find the wounded opposition and obliterate them through healing. They are those who answer the call that rings within the soul of us all, because they recognize, oftentimes after the fact, to do anything less would be living death that comes from the sacrifice of self. Their battle cry is peace through creation and slaying the fear that resides in the profane temples of our minds.
Wow. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, I definitely felt that like that resonates with what you were talking about overall. And I know for me, like the whole concept of death, that's where the name of my podcast comes from. Like obviously the Spiritual Phoenix, it's about dying. And as far as like talking about that transition being like violent or peaceful, it really comes up to how much people are attached to the life that they're living, and where their energy has been invested most of their life, in my opinion, at least. Like for me, having built up a life that was built on lots of false things, like the use of substances, self-will run rampant, mistreatment of women throughout my life, I had a lot of shit that I had to deal with, and it was incredibly uncomfortable to evaluate that. But also with the element of the Spiritual Phoenix thing, I've been through various other deaths like in my life.
Yes.
Some of them have been more pleasant, and it's been about acceptance and not resisting the fact that I'm shedding that layer and moving towards a different space, I guess.
Yes. Thank you for that work. I was thinking when you were reading that poem, that's so amazing. I would like to do a book swap with you.
Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely do that. We'll exchange information after the interview.
Fantastic.
Um, so if you had to reduce your personal philosophy or life experience into like 2 or 3 words, what would it be? Like a 2 or 3 word sentence.
I am love.
Very, very well put.
As a matter of fact, one of the things that I have done and like to continue to practice is the contemplation, the work of the contemplation of death. And one of the questions that I ask myself is, what do I want people to say about me when I'm gone? That's all I want them to say. I am love. She was love. She is love. We are love.
Absolutely. One of the interesting things that has come up in some of my reading on various things is the concept that we're actually already dead, even though we're alive. And so if you want people to feel that, they already do feel that about you, which is, it's kind of an interesting like thing. Like if you live life like you're already dead and you want people to think that you are loved, your current actions that you're expressing are doing so, so you've already achieved it. Kind of like the one quote you shared earlier. I believe it was your son's quote.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, this is kind of a heady idea, and you probably have experienced this, but it's something that our human mind cannot wrap around, and that is that everything is present in this moment.
Oh, yeah. Past, present, future are all now.
Everything, everyone. And so it's not really something that we can really grasp. However, the more awareness that I can bring to that, then I can use that understanding to help me to live more skillfully. For example, when it comes to death, people transitioning out of this life and into another place, I'm never separate. I'm never separate from you. I'm never separate from them. I'm never separate from anyone. And so this longing in my heart, I miss so-and-so, I want so-and-so, I think they're gone, they're out there somewhere, I'm separate from them. Realizing and experiencing, not just thinking, but experiencing that I am not separate from you. You and I are one. Those are not just words. I feel it. I know it. I experience it. And so at any point in time, I can bring your awareness of your presence to me. I can be with you. I can offer you healing energy. I can offer you encouragement and love. I don't care where you are. I don't care if you're been dead for 50 years. It doesn't matter. I can be present with you because we're not separate. We never were separate. This is very real for me.
It's an interesting concept for sure, and it's definitely something that I believe. But it's like if we are part of everything, everything is a part of us, and you can't exist outside of everything. So yeah, it is all there, and sometimes it goes back to awareness and perception of things again, really.
Exactly. And this is the other thing that's really, really hard to wrap our heads around, is that I am nothing and I am everything at the same time. And that nothingness is very, very important for me to grasp, because it is my infinite space that I am. And I think about this, for example, when things go wrong, not wrong, but things go on that are hurtful. And maybe someone says or does something that's hurtful. When I can go back to who I am, I'm nothing. You can't fight nothing. There's nothing to defend. Mm-hmm. And so it's our divine nature, this nothingness and this everythingness. So it's in complete opposition to our human nature, where we're constantly trying to prop ourselves up. Oh, don't do that. You hurt me. And this is the opposite. It's like, I know who I am. I know who I am. And the more we practice presence, the more we awaken to who we are, the more this is not just words, the more it's a reality. You are me and I am you.
Mm-hmm.
We are love and I am nothing. And so are you.
Absolutely. It kind of goes into the concept of a lot of different spiritual masters or masters from various different things throughout history have talked about reality being the illusion. And really what we see is the illusion because it's very limited in the actual context of reality.
This is an illusion. The whole thing is a big hologram. It's an illusion. That's just forming us, helping us to do this dance together.
Yeah, it allows us to be in this moment because for most people that having the deeper spiritual experiences are very off-putting, and it's very hard to discern your place in the present after you've had it for most people, I would assume. So it's easier to have this fixed point to make sense of everything. At least that's my understanding of that. That's like the purpose of the illusion. But it's still, at the end of the day, it's just an illusion.
Yes. And I like the way you talked about reality, because another thing that's really present with me is how I 100% create my reality. And that's hard for people to grasp. So what that means is anything that happens in my life, to me, about me, that I do, I create that reality. And I do it for a number of reasons. It's part of this experience that I have, and it's part of helping me come home to myself. So if I have a car accident and I think, they just ran a red light and T-boned me. Well, it may be hard to grasp, but I attracted that situation to myself. I may not recognize at that time what happened, but it is all for the purpose of bringing me back to what is present here with me, to help me to be in touch with all of the fear, all of the anger, all of the sadness that is part of this human that came into this skin and into this body. And we can, if we're skillful and we're aware of this, instead of fighting the idea that we create our reality, we can use that so that everything that happens in my life, I'm looking at that and saying, it looks like you, it's you, you're my problem. You have a problem and you need to fix your problem. But the reality is you triggered me. These are my feelings. I have the opportunity. You just gave me a gift. Now I can see what's here. Oh, it's sadness. It's abandonment that wants my love right now. And one of the things that I have a practice, I have several ways that I am present with myself and hold space for myself. But my most popular way is to envision these parts of myself, these feelings, as little girls. And I kind of like externalize them so I can talk to them. And so if something comes up, I'm like, oh, it's sadness. I used to slam the door when they started knocking, but these days I open the door and I offer them a cup of tea. And I say, come on in. Hello, sadness. Please tell me, what do you have to say? And I hold space for myself in this way. And sadness is not in control. I am. I'm holding space for my own sadness. And so sadness may say, what they did was very hurtful. It's unfair. All I ever do is nice things for them, and all they do is treat me wrong. And it's not right. And I can sit in compassion and loving presence and say, you're exactly right. That sucks. I am so, so sorry. I love you, Denise. I accept you, sadness, exactly as you are. I love you. And offer myself this unconditional love. I don't have to fix anything. I don't have to convince sadness of anything. our feelings are our feelings. When we try to logically say, I shouldn't be feeling this way, we in essence are pushing away parts of ourselves and saying, you don't belong here. They're there for a reason. They're there because they want to be incorporated into our lives and loved and embraced. And we do this on this microcosm. This is the work we're doing because that's how we do it on the macrocosm. And when we do it right here, we do it for the entire world. That's how I love my darkness.
Absolutely. I know for me, there was times where like I would push away certain feelings and say that I shouldn't feel that. And then it actually makes me feel worse for two reasons, because I still feel the original thing. And then I'm like making myself feel bad for feeling a feeling.
Yes. And that's so natural. It is so natural. But being aware of it and being able to say, oh, what's present right now? It's a practice. It's just a practice. The more we practice anything, the better we get. And the more skillful we get. And the more we're able to hold space for other people in this way. This is the work that we're called to do.
Absolutely. I think one of the tricky things can be, though, sometimes is letting those feelings stay longer than they should, because I know for me personally, sometimes I get hooked on a feeling, as like the one song goes or whatever, and it's like wanting to just feel angry for everything or wanting to feel hurt about everything. And at some point I also have to transition to say, okay, this is what it is, but now I have to disassociate from that. And it's tricky and confusing, I think, for some people, because it's like, how do I know when it's enough? But it goes back to the whole concept of taking accountability and saying, why am I doing this? Why am I feeling this? And it takes a high level of self-honesty, really, to go.
Oh, you just hit the jackpot. Oh my gosh, this life requires such brutal honesty and authenticity. I am brutally honest with myself. And you're exactly right. So it's a practice. And we do this work by following our heart and our intuition. And we keep going back to sitting in the seat of the observer as the awareness, so that whatever feelings are present, they're not running the show. They're not saying, depression's not saying, I can be here as long as I want because she said so. It's not that. It's more of a loving, when we offer this empathy to ourselves, maybe it takes a few minutes. Maybe it takes a few hours. Maybe you need a few days, because this is really a big one. But whatever the case is, sometimes it does require more than just a few minutes or hours. But your intuition can show you this. We just keep going back to sitting in the seat of the awareness and the love that we are, and keep offering compassionate presence to ourselves. This is how we know. At some point, I've had my sadness tell me, I was upset one time because somebody didn't want my presence. And I felt that I was like, who's here? Oh, it's sadness. Oh, sadness. Hello, you're welcome here. I love you, sadness. Tell me what's going on. And, that's just not right. Blah, blah, blah. You know what? You're absolutely right. I love you so much. And sadness says, if they knew how beautiful it is to be in your presence, they would want it too. My sadness was thanking me. And so what I've realized is that my joy and my sadness can be present at the same time, and they're friends. I'm best friends with myself. And so I go about my way, and sadness is a welcome to be with joy in me. I'm big enough. I'm big enough to hold it all. I'm infinite.
Absolutely. I know for me that being able to look at my feelings and accept them and recognize that I can have both feelings at the same time is crucial for me. Beyond bipolar disorder, I was also diagnosed as borderline personality disorder. So a huge part of that too is like rejection, fear of abandonment, and all of that kind of stuff. And using mindfulness to acknowledge why I feel that way, and to say, that person not wanting to talk to me at this time, or not having space for me at this time, isn't really a reflection of me whatsoever. It's more about where they're at, and really like breaking down the way that I think about literally everything, which is exhausting for someone like me at times because I'm an overthinker, has been so crucial. And it really is a matter of.
But going a step farther too, I imagine that you probably do this also, and that is realize not only is it not about you, but what is present. Do I feel abandoned and rejected? And that's really, really important to be able to offer at that time, whether or not it's logical, because a lot of times these feelings are completely illogical. Matter. They're there, and they're valid, and there's nothing wrong with them. And being able to honor and respect their presence. They have some creative intelligence. They have powerful things to say. And they just say, all they ever want is our love. They want to be seen, felt, and heard.
Absolutely. It's interesting for me too on my journey of healing, how at different phases, different things work. And like a lot of the, I don't want to say higher level, but a lot of the stuff that I do currently wouldn't have been accessible to me at an earlier state because I didn't have the prerequisite experience to have that knowledge. And I think that that can be one of the things that people within spiritual circles sometimes forget. I know I actually forget it, even though I'm expressing it right now. I forget it about other people where I'm like, why the hell don't they know this? I'm telling them the answer. And it's like, they don't know the work to get to that answer, to know that that is the answer. And honestly, their answer doesn't have to be my answer too.
We can't sidestep the adversity, the experience. You came here to experience what you came to experience, and you're not going to sidestep it. That is your path. You're smack dab in the middle of your path, in the middle of your addiction, in the middle of your bipolar and all of your stuff. That was your path. And it's very important. And I want to say I honor your journey. I respect you. You picked a tough one. You picked a tough life. And I want to say it's making a huge difference to those people who much is entrusted, much is required, and you bring much to this world by what you've endured. Thank you for taking responsibility for your life and for shedding love and light in a powerful way by loving yourself and by doing this work. It is amazing. It is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a very big gift for me, the fact that I have the ability to do so. I think that a lot of people don't ever get the experiences or opportunities to get to overcome that stuff. And for me, having a supportive family and having space to heal and happening to fall into the right set of people in recovery, all the things in my life align perfectly, which I believe that I'm powerless over lots of things. So a lot of these things were created by my higher power, the universe, the mysteries, whatever you want to call it, put me right where I needed to be. And there's nothing I could have done. I did a lot of footwork, don't get me wrong, but it's like a 50-50 or 75% them, 25%, however it needs to be, whatever the appropriate ratio is. But it's surreal. Thank you for acknowledging that whole experience. Thank you for going through what you've been through as well. I don't think either one of our journeys have been easy, and they've been difficult for different reasons, but you had the experience you did to help other people who have had similar experiences, and to help people that might be going through that or have had different experiences. It's amazing how our journeys and how our experiences can impact other people.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it's the person who introduced us. It's interesting how I connected with her and how she relayed you to me, and somebody else within that circle of people who led me to talking to you also had similar life experiences as to you.
That was Paula Johnson.
Yeah, Paula's the one, and then another woman within that group too.
I didn't know.
Had similar experiences as well. And it's interesting how, like, how I'm connected to like a different part of a community than I thought I would be, but how much knowledge and love and compassion I've gotten from that different part of the same community. I guess it's just fascinating to me how that all works.
What's fascinating to me is how we truly are all connected. And I could have these thoughts, and boom, my friend has another thought, the same thought. And we show each other that in different ways. And it's powerful. It is amazing.
Yeah, life is one big trip. There was a lady, I was living in Humboldt County, and it was around the time I was getting ready to move back to Ohio after my first time, like being in the psych ward and like that whole summer thing. And like the woman I was seeing, her and I had broken up, and I was like, my mom had flown out to help me pack up my apartment. And I was outside just kind of like crying and smoking a cigarette. And this lady who I had always associated as being like a witch or like into like magic or stuff, she came up to me and she pretty much knew that somebody had hurt me. She was able to like pretty much tell the whole experience just by talking to me. And then it was really surreal because she was like saying what I was thinking. And then she's like, life is one big strange trip. And it like blew my mind. And it was like one of the first like deeply heavy synchronicities I had experienced after psychosis. Like the psychosis really kind of rattled parts of my brain open. It like cleared the cache or like purged.
Shaking.
Yeah, it like purged my memory. The weird thing about shaking too is when I was walking back, I was psychotic and I was walking back from my girlfriend at the time, just as like a month or two earlier than the other experience with the witch lady. But there was this voice in my head and it said, your soul is coming back to your body or something along those lines. And then literally an earthquake hit. I didn't know it was an earthquake at the time. Like the ground was literally shaking. And then when I looked back later on, I lived in Arcata, California at that time, so Northern California. But when I looked back, there was actually literally an earthquake at that day at the exact time that I had that thought.
It wasn't even just a thought, it was an actual experience because you're connected.
Oh yeah.
You're connected to the earth and your soul is telling you, this is it. I'm gonna bring you to, it was part of your awakening.
Yeah, my story is freaking weird. I love it, but it's definitely
weirdos
right.
in the world unite.
Yeah, they definitely are. It's like that Tim Leary thing, find the others, for sure.
Yes. Well, we found each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see how much time we got left. We got a couple more minutes. Do you want to throw out some links for yourself?
Well, I want to say that I have both Facebook and a webpage for an organization that community that I founded called Corey's Dream, Be the Change, inspiring people to be love, be compassion, be authentic, be present. And both the Facebook group, which is our page, is called Corey's Dream, CORY, Corey's Dream, and the web page is corysdream.org, and all one word, corysdream.org. And those places you can, among many other things, because I have a traveling exhibition called Do You See What I See? That is inspiring people to love unconditionally, where I eye gaze with homeless people. It's a photography exhibition and a video installation. A number of other things, but all 8 books, which includes Corey's work, some of Corey's work, are there. And this most recent book I'm really excited about, and all of these books are available on Amazon. If you Google Denise Roussel, Corey Roussel, then, or both, you will find these books. And the most recent one I really want to encourage people with is called On Being Love, How I'm Changing the World by Loving Myself. So if you just type in On Being Love, Denise Roussel, Roussel, then on Amazon, you can find it.
Okay, that's awesome. I'll be sure to put links in the description as well for the YouTube video, Facebook video, and on the podcast itself, so people
I'll
can.
send it to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I would appreciate that. Um, Also, I'd like to extend an invitation for you to come back on some other time and just chat. I want to do panel discussions at some point, so maybe potentially have you come on with another guest, and all of us just kind of shoot the shit and see what shakes out from the conversation.
Bring Paula.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I would love to have her on. I feel like I was supposed to interview her and I never did. I gave her a tarot reading at one point.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll look into that. I'll reach out to you sometime soon. I have to get some scheduling things sorted.
Okay. I'm going to walk another pilgrimage. I've walked El Camino de Santiago, which is a pilgrimage in Spain. I'm going to walk 200 miles
Wow.
during the first 2 weeks of May, and I'm going to be walking in southern Spain with my husband. So I'll be out of pocket for a month, but go ahead and give me a shout and see what can happen.
Yeah, we'll get it all situated. I'm probably booked up for the next month anyhow, and then I got so many other things I got to get organized. Sometime in the next couple months, we'll get it sorted.
Good.
Though.
All right.
One last thing, I always ask everybody to close the show in their own way if they want to. So you can have the last word and take us out. But before you do so, thank you for taking the time to come on. Thank you so much for being you and for sharing what you've learned and about your son's experience as well.
Thank you so much for allowing me the chance to be here.
You're very welcome.
I'm going to finish with a quote, and that is, if we hope to experience world peace, we must first practice holding our own darkness in our loving presence.